Hello there, you guys, and welcome back to our little music bubble time together. Today we're going to be looking at the Saraband from the Old Masters for Young Players series. And we're also going to take a little look at this blessed book because in here we can learn about what a Saraband is. Before we get started, though, a special warm welcome to those of you on Patreon. This is your weekly lesson, and I've attached my notes for you, but go ahead and pop over to imslp and just download the music, and we'll pencil things in together. And also, a special warm welcome to those of you on YouTube as well. Thank you so much for watching these, and you're just watching this a lot later, that's all. If you want to stay up to date with all the current stuff, pop over to Patreon, which is linked below for you, and there's 4 tiers: violin and viola group classes, virtual studio circles, guest artist classes, weekly lessons, posts, all that kind of thing. I'd really love to see you there, and I really appreciate the support. So anyway, let's get started. Let's take a look at this beautiful Sarabanda by Jean-Marie Leclerc, who lived from 1697 to 1764. And the first thing I think we should go ahead and mark is the quarter note equals 50, because it says at the beginning lento, and lento is just slow. So it doesn't have to be exactly at 50. It could be a little bit slower, it could be a little bit faster, but slowly would be kind of the tempo to kind of aim for. Before we go any further, though, let me pop over to the Blessed Bach Cello Suites, and this is the Peters edition. So I would recommend buying this. This is transcribed for the viola. And in the beginning, there's a wonderful foreword of all these helpful little things and interpretation. And on page 5 at the bottom, there's a little blurb about sarabands. All right, so saraband is the French for zarabanda, a Spanish word meaning noise or bustle. I think that's kind of fun. So noise and bustle. The dance originated in Latin America in the 16th century. Can you imagine what was going on in Latin America in the 16th century? And was brought to Spain by the early 17th century. At that time, its character was lively and so shockingly sensuous that it was banned in Spain in 1583. So in solo instrumental suites of the late 17th century, the saraband became somewhat more dignified. So Bach's time, or even Jean-Marie Leclerc's time. So a little bit more dignified, it says. In 3/4, its special rhythmic characteristic, assimilated by Bach in a most natural way, is a leading towards and slight emphasis on the second beat. So even though it's in 3/4, I mean, typically in 3/4 we think 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But they're saying that in the saraband we want to feel it more like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But I'm kind of going a little bit too fast. It said that it was at one point kind of upbeat, but it kind of became a little more dignified. So when you're dignified, you just take your time. You're not in a rush. It's a little bit different vibe, isn't it? So sarabands were traditionally made up of half and quarter notes. Eighth notes were decorative and therefore played freely. With the exception of Suite number 5, Bach embellishes his sarabands further by adding 16th notes. All right, so little side note from this blessed book here, the J.S. Bach 6 Suites for cello, but transcribed for viola. You can probably find it for violin as well, but this particular edition has this really nice foreword in the beginning. And in various languages, so you could practice reading it in French and German and English, and I don't know if there's any other languages in there. So let's look at the second half today of this sarabanda. We already said that it's lento, and if you kind of give the first 2 lines a little scan, let's look for the dynamic or the overall kind of sense of this piece. You can see it starts mezzo piano, and then there's some little crescendos, decrescendos. You can call them hairpins, a hairpin. And then it never really says how loud it wants to get, though, in the hairpin, so we kind of just have to use our sensibilities to kind of gauge it. There's a poco retard at the second to last measure before the first ending, so we're going to pull back the tempo a little bit there. And there's also a trill with the one of the notes. And you might remember that a trill is just the note that's written, and then you're going to just go quickly to the upper neighbor note for the key. So let's see if there's any other things I've forgotten about. Let's also notice, because it says that beat 2 is a really important beat, that if you look at most of the measures, the longest rhythm is on beat 2. Bum, 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 bum. Right? I don't think I sang that right, but anyway, you can kind of see that the longer rhythm is on beat 2. So I'm going to play it for you. And you know what, since it's kind of on the quieter side, just take note of where I am in the bow and maybe the contact point that I'm exploring. All right, so 1, 2, 3. To pianissimo. There's a little retard there, so it's a little tricky to play with the metronome. But that is the first part there. It's not too challenging, but I think one of the things that makes it tricky is just the dynamic and also trying to always go towards that beat 2. Just remember though that you're missing part of the music. There's a piano part with this. And so make sure that you at least try to make a connection with a piano friend. They're so fun to have, musical friends, and if you can play these with a pianist, it would just be a lovely thing to work on together. Call your local church or check out a Craigslist post, or you could try calling your university, or I'm sure there's other things I'm like forgetting, but you like try to reach out and make a pianist friend and play these together. And don't also, by the way, don't expect to be just like perfect on the first rehearsal. It's going to be a little bit messy, but it's just fun. You know, playing music is a joy that we can kind of like forget that it's like actually like a family or community or friendly thing to do, to just like play music. You would think of nothing of just going to go play a video game with somebody, but you could also just play music together, and that's super awesome. So with that, you guys, thank you so much for being here. I hope you enjoyed the class today, and I'll see you next time where we look at the second half, which is a lot longer. All right, lots of love.